The tires hummed steadily against the asphalt as the sun dipped low behind us, casting the highway in a honeyed glow. The kids were in the back, half watching a cartoon on the tablet, half arguing about whose turn it was to hold the popcorn bag. I was focused on the road, humming along to the radio, telling myself this drive would be easy. Just a couple of hours to my in-laws' house for what they called a simple family evening. I had packed snacks, loaded everyone in the car, and prepared to put on my best smile. Nothing more than the usual performance, I thought. Then his phone buzzed. My husband glanced at the screen. For a moment, his face looked normal. Then the color drained, like someone had pulled a plug inside him. He stared, frozen, and then snapped his eyes toward me. His voice came out low, sharp, and unlike him. "Turn the car around, now." I blinked at him, my hands gripping the wheel tighter. "What? Why?" My voice was confused, a nervous laugh tucked at the edge. He had never said something like that to me before. He leaned closer, whispering now, but with urgency that clawed at my chest. "Just turn around. Please. Trust me." The kids stopped squabbling, sensing the shift in the air. I could hear my own breathing. My heart began to pound in my throat. For a second, I thought about ignoring him, keeping us pointed toward that glowing horizon where the dinner table and smiling relatives waited. But something in his eyes made me grip the wheel harder. He never panicked, not in traffic jams, not in storms, not even when the kitchen caught fire once and smoke filled the house. Yet here he was, pale, jaw set, telling me to turn around. I flicked on the turn signal and veered toward the nearest exit. My palms were slick against the leather. I didn't even know why I obeyed. Instinct, maybe. Or the fact that the voice inside me whispered, "Listen. Listen this time." The car slowed, then curved back in the opposite direction. Behind us, the highway stretched on toward the gathering we were supposed to attend. In front of us now, the road led away into uncertainty. I didn't speak. Neither did he. The silence was thick. Only after a mile did I find my voice. "What was that about?" I asked, glancing at him out of the corner of my eye. He shook his head, staring down at his phone like it was a live grenade. "Later," he muttered. That single word churned my stomach. Later meant there was something too heavy to say out loud, at least not with the kids' ears perked up in the back seat. I wanted to push, but I didn't. Instead, I tried to focus on the ordinary. The smell of fries still lingering from the drive-thru, the faint buzz of the tablet cartoon, the fading light spilling in streaks across the windshield. Normal things, grounding things. But underneath, I felt the current of dread, like a low hum only I could hear. A few minutes before his phone had buzzed, everything had been so normal. We had laughed at a silly billboard, planned what games the kids might play with their cousins, and wondered if the traffic would thin before the next toll booth. My mind replayed that shift, from mundane chatter to this eerie silence, and I realized how fragile normal is, how one call can unravel it in a heartbeat. I thought about his mother's voice on the other end of that call. Though I had not heard it, I imagined her tone. Honeyed but sharp, the way she always managed to coat her demands in sugar. She had called often enough to leave bruises without raising her volume. My chest tightened with a memory. Thanksgiving 2 years ago, her whisper in my ear as I carved the turkey. "You really don't belong at the head of this table, you know." And everyone smiling, while the words sank claws into me. That was the woman who had called him now. That was the voice that made him go pale. I gripped the wheel, my knuckles aching. Maybe I should have asked him to put the call on speaker. Maybe I should have demanded answers right away. Instead, I drove. One exit after another, the car pulling us farther from the place where our seats had been set. I imagined the table, the dishes polished, the laughter rehearsed, and I imagined my chair empty. Would they notice? Or would they toast to the peaceful evening without me? He finally shifted, pressing his palm against his forehead like he was holding in words that burned. I caught his eyes. They were still wide, still brimming with urgency. "Thank you," he whispered, so soft I almost missed it. "For trusting me." That was all he gave me. My mind spun. Thank me for what? What had I just avoided? My pulse answered with no clarity, only the steady thud of survival. The kids had quieted, lulled by the tablet's glow. Their silence felt unusual, like even they understood something heavy hung in the air. I reached for my water bottle and realized my hand was trembling. The car felt too small, the air too thin. But I kept driving, mile after mile, waiting for him to break the silence. When the road curved into darker fields and the lights of town faded, I stole another glance at him. He was staring out the window now, phone clutched in his lap, lips pressed tight. He looked like a man holding a secret too big for both of us. And all I could do was drive, the wheel steady under my hands, the unknown pressing closer with every mile. I wanted to ask 100 questions. What did she say? Why did you look so afraid? What would have happened if I hadn't turned? But I held them in, knowing the answers would come. Maybe not tonight. Maybe not until he was ready. All I knew was this. I had turned when he asked. And he believed it had saved us. That thought alone chilled me. Saved us from what? The road stretched out in front of us, darker now as the evening swallowed the last streaks of light. I kept my eyes on the lane markers, letting them pull me forward like a thread in the dark. My husband sat still, his phone gripped in his lap. Every now and then the screen lit up, but he never answered. He only pressed the button to silence it, then stared straight ahead. His profile was rigid, jaw set, and I knew better than to break the silence just yet. I thought back to how the night was supposed to go. We were meant to arrive at his parents' house by 7. The children would run into the living room, throw their arms around cousins, and scatter among toys. I would set the casserole dish I had made on the counter, forcing a smile as his mother lifted the lid and made some small remark that felt more like a judgment than gratitude. I had already pictured myself laughing politely, blending into the background, telling myself that being quiet was easier than starting a war. Instead, we were driving away, and the casserole sat cooling in the back seat. I realized how much I had rehearsed the evening in my mind. What clothes I would wear, what compliments I would give, how I would avoid topics that always left me raw. All of that planning dissolved in the moment he whispered, "Turn around." The kids began to nod off. The tablet battery died with a soft chime, leaving only the low hum of the tires and the faint whoosh of passing trucks. I glanced at the rearview mirror. Their heads leaned against the seats, mouths slightly open in the innocence of sleep. I envied them, their unawareness, their trust that we would carry them anywhere safe. My husband shifted finally, pressing a hand against the dashboard, as if bracing himself. I took a breath. "You're scaring me," I said, my voice low. He turned toward me, eyes heavy with something I could not name. "I will explain soon," he whispered. "But for now, I need you to trust that leaving was the only choice." The words sat between us like stones. I wanted to demand answers, but the seriousness in his voice held me still. My mind began to turn backward, rewinding through the past weeks, looking for clues I had ignored. The invitation itself had been strange. His mother had called only once, her tone dripping with sweetness. She said it was going to be a small gathering. She said she wanted to keep things light and simple, but she never used the word simple unless something was hiding behind it. I remembered the pause in her voice, the way she added, "It would mean a lot if you both came, especially her." The way she said, "her," made my skin crawl even then. I had brushed it aside. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I always overanalyzed her words. But now, on this dark road with my husband pale and shaken, I realized my gut had been right all along. I thought back to other nights, other dinners, the way his mother had leaned across the table once, her wineglass tilting dangerously, and whispered, "You'll never be enough for him. He deserves more." I remembered biting my tongue until it almost bled, choosing silence rather than letting her see me shatter. He had defended me that night, but even his voice could not erase the sting of her cruelty. And then there was the Christmas dinner, when she made an announcement to the whole room. She raised her glass and said, "Some of us give everything to this family, and some of us just take." Everyone clapped, laughed nervously, unsure where to look. My husband squeezed my hand under the table, but the damage had already been done. Those memories swirled with tonight's command. The sharpness in his voice had not been directed at me. It had been born from fear, and that fear had roots deeper than I yet understood. We passed a gas station, glowing faintly at the side of the road. He gestured for me to pull in. I guided the car under the lights and parked near the far pump. He exhaled, finally setting the phone face down on the console. "Stay here," he said softly. He stepped out, walking toward the station doors. I watched him through the windshield, the fluorescent lights painting his face in harsh lines. He looked over his shoulder once, before disappearing inside. I sat in the silence, my hands still gripping the wheel. My reflection in the window looked like a stranger. Pale skin, tired eyes, lips pressed thin. I realized I was holding my breath and forced myself to let it out slowly. In that quiet, my phone buzzed. I reached for it. An unfamiliar number flashed across the screen. I hesitated, then let it ring until it stopped. A second later, a message appeared. 3 words. "Where are you?" No name, no punctuation. Just those 3 words. I felt my chest tighten. My first thought was her. His mother. I imagined her at the house, glass in hand, waiting. I imagined her knowing we had turned around, knowing we had escaped something. The station door opened and he returned, a bottle of water in his hand. He climbed into the passenger seat and handed it to me. His hands shook slightly. "Drink," he said. I obeyed, the cool liquid sliding down my throat. "We cannot go back tonight," he continued, his voice steadier now. "Something is wrong. I know you want answers, but you have to trust that avoiding that house was the safest thing we could do." I wanted to press him, to beg for clarity, but I swallowed my questions. Instead, I nodded slowly. The truth would come. For now, survival was enough. As we pulled back onto the road, I glanced at the phone screen again. The message still glowed. "Where are you?" I locked the screen quickly, shoving it into my bag. The night outside had grown darker, but inside the car, I felt a strange flicker of light. Not hope exactly. More like resolve. Whatever waited for us had already begun to unravel, and I would be ready when the truth finally arrived. The highway narrowed into a 2-lane stretch, lined with trees that swayed in the night wind. Their shadows reached across the road, like dark fingers brushing against our car. My husband sat stiff beside me, silent, except for the occasional clearing of his throat. The children shifted in the back, their small bodies heavy with sleep. Every so often, a soft sigh or a murmur escaped them. I drove carefully, every muscle in my body taut, as if waiting for an unseen impact. When we stopped at the gas station, I thought I would get answers. Instead, I only got more questions. That message on my phone haunted me. 3 words. "Where are you?" The tone was not concern. It was possession. It felt less like someone worried, and more like someone demanding control. I kept glancing at my bag, where my phone rested, as if the words might seep through the fabric and climb back into my chest. Finally, I broke the silence. "You have to tell me something. Anything. I cannot keep driving blind like this." My voice cracked on the last word. He turned to me slowly, his eyes rimmed with exhaustion and fear. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, almost reluctantly, he began. "It was my mother," he whispered. "She called before." Her words were careful, too careful. "She said she wanted to talk to you alone when we arrived. She said it like a promise, but it sounded more like a threat." I gripped the wheel tighter, my pulse jumping. "And that was enough to make you turn us around?" He shook his head. "It was not just what she said. It was how she said it. Cold, sharp, rehearsed. Like she had been waiting for this moment. I have heard that tone before. The last time she used it, my father ended up in the hospital, and he never spoke about what happened. He only said she had gone too far." The car filled with his words, heavy and suffocating. I felt the air thicken, like breathing through wet cloth. My hands were trembling on the wheel, but I forced them to stay steady. My mind flashed back to countless dinners, each one a stage where she played queen and I played the fool. Every small humiliation, every cutting remark, every subtle exclusion. Now those memories gathered together, forming a jagged truth. She was not simply cruel. She was dangerous. We drove in silence again. I stared at the lines of the road, letting them guide me forward. My heart hammered so loudly I was sure he could hear it. Then, out of nowhere, the phone in my bag buzzed again. The children stirred but did not wake. I reached for it, my fingers cold and clumsy. The screen lit up with another message. This time, not 3 words. A full sentence that made my stomach lurch. "Come back or you will regret it." I gasped. My husband's head whipped toward me. "What is it?" he asked urgently. I handed him the phone with shaking hands. He read the words and his jaw clenched tight. She knows, he muttered. She knows we turned around. I whispered. How? He shook his head slowly. She always knows. She watches, she listens, she finds ways. His voice dropped lower. It is not just her. It never is. A chill ran down my spine. For the first time that night, I felt truly exposed. Like eyes were following us, even in the dark stretch of road. I checked the rearview mirror again and again, half expecting headlights to appear behind us, closing in. I wanted to scream. I wanted to slam my fists against the steering wheel. Instead, I swallowed the rising panic. The children needed sleep. They needed peace, not my fear echoing inside the car. So I kept my voice steady, even as my insides unraveled. We are not going back, I said firmly. Not tonight, not ever, if I can help it. He looked at me, a flicker of relief crossing his face. Good, he said softly. That is exactly what she is afraid of, losing control. We reached a small town just before midnight. The streets were quiet, the shops shuttered, neon signs buzzing faintly above empty sidewalks. I pulled into a parking lot beside a closed diner. The fluorescent lights cast a pale glow over cracked pavement. We sat there, engine idling. Both of us too wound up to move. I turned to him, finally letting my anger slip through. Why did you not tell me sooner? All those times she cornered me. All those times she tried to break me down. You knew she was capable of more than just words. He closed his eyes, rubbing his temples. I thought I could shield you. I thought if I stood between you and her, it would be enough. But she has been planning. I can feel it. He opened his eyes again, and they burned with a mix of guilt and resolve. Tonight was only the beginning. I sat back, my breath catching. Beginning. That word echoed inside me like a bell tolling in the dark. My mind raced with possibilities, each one worse than the last. Yet beneath the fear, something else stirred. Resolve. If tonight was only the beginning, then so was my strength. I reached for his hand. His fingers were cold, but they tightened around mine with a quiet desperation. We sat there together, in that empty lot under buzzing lights, like two fugitives hiding from an unseen pursuer. The children shifted in the back seat, one of them mumbling a dream. I turned to look at their faces, soft in sleep. They were the reason we had to keep going. The reason fear could not paralyze us. As I turned back to face the windshield, a thought lodged in my mind and refused to leave. If she was watching us, if she knew we had turned around, then she had eyes somewhere, maybe in that house, maybe beyond. And if that was true, then our lives were not just tangled in family politics, they were entangled in something far darker. The night pressed in on the car, and I felt the weight of it in my chest. I whispered to myself, too soft for him to hear. We cannot let her win. The words tasted like steel. The parking lot was almost empty, the only sound the low hum of the engine and the occasional buzz from a flickering street lamp above us. The diner's neon sign sputtered, its red letters barely clinging to life. The silence pressed in, heavy and strange, until even the children's soft breathing felt loud. My husband still held my hand, his thumb tracing small circles across my skin, not as comfort, but as if trying to convince himself we were still here, still real. I leaned back against the seat, eyes fixed on the dark stretch of road we had just traveled. Every passing car made my pulse spike. Headlights appeared, then vanished into the night. Each time, I expected one to slow, to pull in beside us, to reveal that she had sent someone to follow. Finally, I broke the quiet. We cannot just sit here all night. My voice was calm, but my insides twisted. He nodded, releasing my hand. You are right. But before we move, I need to tell you something. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He scrolled quickly, then turned the screen toward me. A series of messages filled the display. Some were short, clipped sentences. Others were longer, dripping with command. My chest tightened as I read them. Come alone. Do not bring her. I will talk to you, not her. If she says anything, ignore it. You know who matters. I looked up at him, my throat dry. She sent you these? He nodded. They started 3 days ago. I deleted some, so you would not see them. I thought maybe it was just her usual way of trying to control. But tonight, her voice, it was different. I felt the blood drain from my face. She wanted you to bring me there. Alone. Why? He looked away, staring at the glowing diner sign as if the answer might be hidden in its flicker. Because she wanted to corner you. I do not know what she planned, but it was not a conversation. It was a trap. The word trap echoed in my mind. Suddenly, the casserole cooling in the back seat, the invitation that had felt too sweet, the careful phrasing of her call-it-all clicked together. She had been building toward tonight, and if he had not told me to turn around, I would have walked straight into it. The children stirred. One mumbled a name in sleep. Another shifted under a blanket. I forced a smile for them, though they could not see it. My hands gripped the steering wheel again. So what do we do now? He took a long breath. We drive. We do not stop until we are far enough that she cannot reach us. Tomorrow, we decide what comes next. I nodded, shifted the car into gear, and pulled back onto the road. The tires crunched over gravel before finding smooth asphalt again. The town slipped away behind us, its lights fading like dying embers. Ahead stretched nothing but open road and darkness. As we drove, the night seemed to thicken. The trees leaned closer, the shadows deeper. My headlights carved narrow tunnels through the dark, but everything beyond them felt uncertain, menacing. I glanced at the rearview mirror again. For a second, I swore I saw headlights in the distance, small and steady, like eyes watching us. "Do you see that?" I whispered. He turned, peering through the back window. His expression hardened. Yes. The headlights grew closer, slow but deliberate. My grip tightened, sweat slicking my palms. "It could be anyone," I said quickly, trying to calm myself. But even I did not believe my words. The car behind us kept its distance, but never disappeared. Mile after mile, it stayed in our shadow. My husband's hand hovered near mine on the wheel, not to guide, but to steady. "Do not panic," he said quietly. "Stay steady. Keep driving." The children remained asleep, mercifully unaware of the tension vibrating in the air. I focused on the rhythm of the road, the steady thrum of the tires, the faint hiss of wind. But the presence behind us gnawed at me, pulling at every nerve. After nearly 20 minutes, the car's headlights finally turned off onto a side road. Relief flooded me, sharp and sudden. My breath escaped in a shudder. He reached over, squeezed my shoulder. "See? Not every shadow is hers." But deep down, I was not convinced. We drove another hour before finding a small motel off the highway. Its sign buzzed faintly, promising clean rooms, low rates. I pulled in, heart still racing. We parked near the edge of the lot, under a broken light. The children woke groggily, blinking at the unfamiliar building. Inside the lobby, the air smelled of bleach and stale coffee. A tired clerk handed us a key, barely glancing up. The room was small, 2 double beds covered with scratchy blankets, a single lamp casting yellow light. It felt both safe and suffocating. The children collapsed onto one bed, falling back into sleep within minutes. I sat on the other, staring at my husband. The silence stretched until I finally asked, "How long has she been like this? Truly like this?" He lowered himself onto the edge of the bed, his shoulders sagging. "My whole life," he admitted. "But I always thought I could manage her. I thought keeping the peace was enough. I thought shielding you would protect you. I was wrong." I looked at him, the man who had always been calm, steady, protective. Now he looked broken, shadows under his eyes, voice low with regret. "You saved us tonight," I whispered. He shook his head. "Number. You saved us. You turned when I asked. You trusted me. That is what saved us." I lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling stained with watermarks. My mind replayed the moment on the road. His voice sharp, commanding. My hands turning the wheel without question. The buzzing messages on his phone. The words on mine. "Come back, or you will regret it." Sleep did not come. Instead, I listened to the hum of the air conditioner, the soft breaths of my children, and the silence that carried more weight than any argument. For the first time, I admitted the truth to myself. This was not just about her cruelty, her sharp words, her manipulations. This was something deeper, darker, more dangerous. And if tonight was the trap we escaped, then the real battle had only just begun. I closed my eyes, whispering the words like a vow. "We will not go back." The night held its breath, as if listening. The motel room was still, but my body refused to rest. The children slept deeply, their faces softened by dreams, their small hands curled against the blankets. I envied them. My husband sat near the window, staring out at the empty parking lot, his phone on the sill beside him. The screen glowed once, then again, with messages he refused to open. Finally, I whispered, "What if she finds us here?" My voice cracked. He turned, the lamplight catching the hard lines on his face. "She will not," he said. But even as he spoke, his eyes flicked back toward the dark lot. An hour later, the knock came. It was soft at first, almost hesitant, but unmistakable in the silence. 3 quick raps, a pause, then another 2. My heart lurched. The children stirred, one letting out a tiny whimper before rolling over. My husband raised a hand, signaling me to stay quiet. He moved slowly to the door, pressing his ear against it. "Who is it?" he asked, his voice low, steady. No answer. The knock came again, harder this time. I grabbed the children's blanket tighter around them, my pulse thundering in my ears. He straightened, took a slow breath, then slid the chain lock into place before opening the door an inch. A woman's voice drifted through the crack. "It is me. Open the door." I froze. That voice. Sweet as honey, sharp as glass. His mother. My husband's shoulders stiffened. "What are you doing here?" Her laugh was soft, rehearsed. "You left so quickly. We worried. I thought I would check in." He shut the door immediately, the chain rattling. He turned to me, his face pale. She followed us. The knock grew louder, faster, each blow vibrating through the thin wood. "Open this door," she snapped now, her sweetness gone. "You cannot hide from me." The children stirred again. One sat up, rubbing his eyes, whispering, "Mom?" I pressed a finger to his lips, urging him back down. My heart raced as I looked at my husband. He shook his head, silently mouthing, "Do not open." From the other side came her voice again. "Do you think you can run? After everything we have done for you? After everything I gave you?" My husband's hands curled into fists. "Go away," he said through the door. His voice was calm but tight, ready to snap. Her reply was sharp. "Do not talk to me like that. Bring her out here, now." My stomach dropped. She did not come for him. She came for me. I stood slowly, my legs trembling. "She will not stop," I whispered. "She will not leave unless she sees me." He turned, eyes blazing. "Number, that is what she wants. She feeds on confrontation." But the pounding grew louder, more insistent. The door shook on its hinges. The children began to cry softly, fear spilling into the stale air. My chest burned. I could not let them see me break, not now. I stepped forward, placing a hand on my husband's arm. "Let me end this." He shook his head violently. "Not like this. Not on her terms." The pounding stopped. Silence fell, heavy and eerie. Then her voice, low and venomous. "You think this is about you. It never was. You will regret humiliating me tonight. Both of you." Something in me snapped. I yanked the curtain aside and looked out. There she stood, under the broken light, her coat pulled tight around her shoulders, her face twisted with fury. For a moment, our eyes locked through the thin pane of glass. I saw triumph there, but also desperation. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands. I opened the camera and pressed record. Slowly, deliberately, I turned the lens toward her. She noticed, and her expression shifted, panic flickering across her face. "You cannot record me," she hissed, though her voice was muffled by the door. "Oh, but I can," I said loudly enough for her to hear. "And I will. Every word, every threat." For the first time that night, she faltered. Her posture stiffened. She glanced around the lot as if suddenly aware of witnesses that were not there. My husband moved beside me, his voice steady now. "Leave, Mom, or this recording goes straight to the police." Her jaw clenched. "You would betray your own family?" "You betrayed it long ago," he answered. The silence stretched. Then she turned sharply, her heels clicking against the pavement as she stormed away into the night. The sound faded until there was nothing left but the hum of the motel air conditioner and the children's quiet sobs. I lowered the phone, my hands trembling so badly I almost dropped it. My husband closed the curtain and locked the door fully, then pulled me into his arms. We stood there, holding each other in the stale motel light, shaking with adrenaline and disbelief. The children clung to us, their small voices whispering questions we could not answer. I smoothed their hair, murmuring lies of safety, promises I hoped I could keep. Hours later, when the room was still again, I replayed the video. Her face glared back at me, her threats caught in perfect clarity. For once, I had proof. Not just my word, not just my memory twisted by years of gaslighting. Hard, undeniable proof. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. My husband placed a hand on mine, his voice a whisper. "We have what we need now." I nodded slowly. The weight of years pressed down on me, but for the first time, it did not crush. It steadied me. The battle had shifted. Tonight, she came to break us. Instead, she exposed herself. As I finally closed my eyes, one thought settled deep inside me. She had lost the power of secrecy, and without it, her empire of control would begin to crumble. Morning light leaked through the thin motel curtains, painting pale stripes across the worn carpet. I had not slept. My body ached with exhaustion, but my mind kept circling the same loop, replaying the knock on the door, her voice, her threats. My husband stirred beside me, his hand resting heavy over mine as if anchoring me. The children were still asleep, their breath steady, their dreams unbroken by the weight of the night. I slipped out of bed quietly and sat at the small table near the window. My phone sat there, still holding the video. I pressed play again. Her face appeared, furious, desperate, commanding. I watched it over and over until my stomach turned. Then I set the phone down and stared at it, the glow fading to black. Proof. For the first time, I had proof. When he woke, he came to stand behind me. His hand rested on my shoulder. "What are you going to do with it?" he asked softly. "I am not sure yet," I admitted. "But I know one thing. We cannot keep living like this. We cannot keep pretending." His eyes closed briefly, as if in relief and regret at the same time. "Then we go to the police." By the time the children woke, we had packed. The casserole dish went into the trash, untouched and irrelevant now. We loaded the car in silence. The morning was clear, birds scattering across the power lines, traffic light on the highway. Yet everything felt heavy. As I pulled out of the lot, I realized the road ahead did not feel like escape anymore. It felt like confrontation. At the police station, the air smelled of stale coffee and printer ink. A young officer listened as we explained, his pen scratching across the report form. When I handed him the phone, he played the video twice, his brows furrowing deeper each time. "This is a threat," he said firmly. "You did the right thing by recording it." My husband sat stiff in the chair, his jaw clenched. The officer asked a series of questions, names, dates, incidents in the past. For each answer, memories spilled out of me like broken glass. Thanksgiving humiliation, Christmas announcements, the way she had turned family into a weapon. The officer wrote everything down, his pen steady, his eyes kind but unreadable. When it was over, he closed the file. "We will follow up," he said. "But you need to know, cases like this take time. Sometimes the hardest part is the family dynamic. People cover for each other. People minimize. You have to be ready for that." I nodded. "We are ready." Walking out of that station, I felt lighter. Not free, not safe, but lighter. The burden was no longer locked inside me. It was on paper, in a file, in someone else's hands. Days passed. The phone buzzed less. When it did, I did not answer. My husband stopped deleting messages and instead saved every single one. Some were pleading, some were manipulative, others were pure venom. "You cannot do this to me. You are nothing without this family. Think of the children." Each word became evidence. Each word hardened my resolve. The children sensed the change. They asked fewer questions. They clung a little closer at night. One evening, my youngest crawled into my lap and whispered, "We are safe now, right?" I held him tight, my throat closing. "Yes," I said. "We are safe." I wanted it to be true. Weeks later, a knock came again. This time, it was not her. It was a police officer holding a folder. He spoke calmly, explaining the process, the options, the protections available, restraining orders, documentation, legal steps that felt both terrifying and empowering. For the first time, The fight was not one-sided. After he left, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the papers. My husband joined me, his hand resting over mine. "We start here," he said. "One step at a time." I thought about the woman who had stood outside that motel door, pounding, demanding, threatening. I thought about the years of whispers, digs, humiliations masked as tradition. And I realized something. Her power had always thrived in silence. Now, silence was gone. We filed the paperwork. We followed through. She raged, she pleaded, she turned relatives against us. Some called, demanding explanations. Others sent messages dripping with judgment. But for every finger pointed, I remembered that video. I remembered the proof. I remembered the night she showed her true face, and I held on to it. The children adapted quicker than I expected. They laughed again. They played in the yard without glancing nervously over their shoulders. I took them to get ice cream one sunny afternoon, and as they smeared chocolate across their cheeks, I felt a strange ache in my chest. Joy, fragile, but real. Weeks turned into months. We rebuilt, slowly, cautiously, but with intention. My husband kept his distance from her, a choice that broke his heart but healed his soul. I found strength I did not know I had. Every time I looked at my children's faces, I knew it was worth it. One evening, months later, I stood in front of the mirror, brushing my hair. The house was quiet, the children asleep, my husband reading in the other room. My reflection stared back at me, older, more tired, but steadier, stronger. I whispered to myself, "You survived." I do not know if she realizes what she lost that night at the motel. Maybe she believes she can still claw her way back into our lives. Maybe she tells herself the story differently, painting herself as the victim. But I know the truth. She lost the one thing she valued most: control. And once control slips through your fingers, it does not return. I looked out the window at the night sky, stars scattered like fragments of hope. For the first time in years, I felt peace. Not perfect, not permanent, but enough. I do not know what tomorrow will bring. Court dates, family divisions, more whispers from those who believe her lies. But tonight, in this moment, I feel something she will never feel again: freedom.